We're going to have Noah Tratt from Expedia is our keynote. And immediately after this, we're going to have the last panel, which is the best panel of the day, with the online travel agency. And after this, we have a small happy hour outside for a little bit more networking. And that's it. Okay? So we'll just bring in as many people as possible. Please put Noah's presentation. Noah did ask me not to introduce him, not to cut into his time. But I wanted to thank Noah. We know each other for a long time. Tried to bring him to since the first TTI. It's the third one, so I guess third one is a charm. So thank you.
Thank you. All right. So Ram gave me the sweet spot here, the keynote. It's really stretching time. Everybody's had their snacks. So my name is Noah Tratt. I'm with Expedia Group. I'm based in outside of Seattle, Washington. It's a pleasure to be here. So thank you to Ram and Chen for having me. I've been at the company a long time, 16 years. I've worked on a number of different businesses. I've worked on our corporate travel. I've worked in our partner relationships. I've worked in our media business. And now I'm working on a number of our brands that are in different regions around the world, like Europe and Australia and North America. I have more than 45 years of experience in the hotel industry. Everyone scoffs at that, but that's true because I grew up in a place where that's a resort community and was fortunate enough to have jobs picking up cigarette butts from the time I was a little kid in parking lots of hotels and making beds and cleaning rooms. And so that inspired me to study hard and reach for the stars. So people asked me last night at Ram's VIP cocktail reception why I was asked to speak at this conference. I mean, in the past, they've had Sheldon speaking at this conference, and this year they get Noah. So why I told people that I think it's because I model myself after Ram. I'm working on his hairstyle. It's a couple years away, but it's coming quick. All right. So I thought I'd give you an intro to Expedia. We have in our technology, so Ram asked me to speak mostly about our technology and how we think about technology and how we work with outside companies on technology opportunities. So that's the focus of what I'm going to talk about. Hopefully you'll find it interesting. And if not, feel free to close your eyes and catch up on your sleep. So Expedia has 5,500 people dedicated to technology around the world. Our business is global, where we have technology teams in 18 different countries, in 5 regions of the world. And we support 93 currencies, 67 languages. And Expedia Group is not just Expedia.com. I think one thing that not everyone may be aware, and if you are aware, I apologize. I'm going to bore you with more details on it. We own a lot of other brands, consumer-facing brands like Hotels.com. We own the 3rd largest travel management company focused on corporate travel, Egencia. We own HomeAway and its sister brands. We own Trivago, which is a meta-search company like our friends Skyscanner that are here, that operates out of 55 different countries. And we own a number of regional brands. And we also power a lot of other websites, and I'm going to talk about that in a second. But so last night we had the VIP reception. There's something that's very unique about Israel. They have this concept of VVIP. Did anyone go to the VVIP reception last night? No one got invited? It was just me? Chen was there. It was just Chen and I drinking cocktails at the VVIP reception. But we also have a brand that focuses on VVIPs, which was a question that someone asked me last night. It's called Classic Custom Vacations, and they do very high-end luxury travel packages, mainly sold through travel agents. So the scope of our business is large. We have over 675 million visits from 75 countries. We support nearly 2 million corporate travelers. Our content is used by over 150,000 traditional travel agents. So we have a travel agent product where they can tap into all the different supply, whether it be hotels or vacation rentals or airline tickets around the world. And our customer service agents handle 60 million calls annually. That represents more than 550 airlines. We actually have more vacation rentals now than we do hotels, so 1.6 million vacation rentals and more than 665,000 properties. We also, you probably know, are in the activities business. There have been a lot of questions about activities today, and that's an area of focus for us. And we have relationships with car rental companies around the world. All that adds up to more than 750 million searches from consumers every day, which is backed up on our back-end systems actually take nearly 9 billion inventory and pricing updates because, as you know, hotels and airlines and car rental companies change their prices constantly. And so our systems have to support all those updates. And we do 15 billion plus flight searches annually. So just to support our suppliers, so just to support the hotels and the vacation rentals, we deal with 1.2 petabytes of data processed every day, which is 10 to the power of 15. I didn't even know what a petabyte was until recently. We process an additional 51 terabytes of data that we collect, which is 10 to the power of 12, and we run 10,000 processes to support all the supplier pricing and information content updates that we get, and we do all of it in 2 seconds or less. So essentially what our business is, it's a marketplace. We're trying to match consumer demand with inventory from our suppliers, and that tech team of 5,500 people, their job is to figure out how to bring that marketplace together. And because we work on both sides, both the consumer demand side and the supplier side, we essentially have the advantage of having both a consumer graph and a supplier graph. So a partner graph of what hotels have available, what airlines have available, what vacation rental owners have available, and what consumers are looking for. And it's at the intersection of those two graphs that things start to get interesting, and it's been a core part of the conversations that I've had with a lot of startups at this fantastic conference, because I think there is a lot of data science expertise here and a lot of efforts to use machine learning and AI. You've heard those terms talked a lot about when you heard the startup pitches. And those are the things that Ram asked me to focus on in my talk. We've been building a very significant data science organization for some time now. This slide is meant to illustrate that we're trying to take that graph and provide better solutions for consumers. So that's the big promise of all this data. If you can make sense of it with machine learning, if you can make sense of it algorithmically, then we can do a better job of answering consumer questions because we have insights into what consumers are looking for, and we have insights into what supply is available and what converts, and we can be smarter about what we put in front of people. But data science also informs our marketing. If you follow Expedia Group, you probably know that last year we spent over $1 billion on performance marketing. So performance marketing is also known as click marketing. Hopefully it's not the fraudulent insertion kind of click marketing that one of the startups presented to us. It's good quality click marketing. But we're using data science to inform how we allocate our spend in Google SEM and search engine marketing. We're using data science to inform how we allocate our spend in metasearch on a Skyscanner or on a Kayak or on a Trivago. Because we have this large data set and because we have developed the expertise to apply that. But it's not just on the consumer side. I mentioned that we're also trying to apply data science to benefit our partners. And so we can provide insights into pricing, how a small hotel on Rothschild Boulevard down the street from here should price their product. That's the promise of data science based on what's going on in the marketplace, what kind of compression we're seeing, what volume of searches and conversion we're seeing. And those are the kinds of insights that we hope will increase the value proposition of a company like Expedia when we work with a hotel or an airline or an activity provider. We can also use data science in customer service, and I'll show you an example of that shortly. So Ram asked me a question when I was preparing for the conference, which is, hey, so you're building this data science team, that's super cool, but those are scarce resources. And so one part of his question was, what kind of startups do you work with that might be able to add to your in-house resources? But he also wanted me to explain how we frame the prioritization of data science resource allocations. And so I found this, we have an internal tech blog, and one of our engineers put this up, and I thought it was a really nice way to think about how we use the tools of data science and AI in solving business problems that we face every day. So there's a range of existing practices to new practices and new data to existing data. And I think our bias at first was really to focus on automation, so that using data science to figure out what keywords to bid on and how much we should bid on them in SEM. That's really automating something that we have been doing manually. Whereas something that's more disruptive requires both developing new data sources and new practices. And I would say that our bias is really towards the left side of this slide. It's the same, we have the same left, right? Yeah. So the left side of the slide, but I think one thing that's interesting about working with really talented engineers is they do gravitate towards more challenging problems. So there have been some really exciting things that we've prioritized that have been more disruptive, and I wanted to talk to you a little bit about those as well, that have been more on the invent and the disrupt side. But I think right now we're kind of in the early days here, and we're focused more on augmentation and automation first. But before I talk about the specific examples, I wanted to just mention that one of the big technical priorities for us as a business has been migrating to the cloud. So haven't heard a lot about the cloud at this conference, but I have noticed in some of the URLs that people have shared with me for some of the startup demos that people are also using the cloud extensively. And the reason, if you're not familiar, to use the cloud is multifaceted. One is it gets us closer to customers as a global business. If you use a cloud provider like an Amazon, they have servers that are closer to where customers are asking the questions that allows you to answer those questions that much more quickly. It could be a matter of milliseconds, but milliseconds really matter. And I'll talk a little bit about that in a second. It also allows us, one of the panels, the gentleman from Booking was talking about the importance of the scientific method and how they roll out tests and how they really look to consumers to validate everything they're doing. In the old world of server farms, if you developed something new, you had to stand up a server with that new feature on it, and then you had to deploy that in a data center and make sure that it worked. In a world of cloud infrastructure, you can deploy or roll out a new feature that much more quickly and start getting data from consumers or from suppliers, in the case of testing something that's focused on a hotel or an airline, on whether they're using it and how are they using it and are they having a good experience with it, and does it make sense to deploy it to everybody. It also takes a lot of the instability out of, when you're running a large, complicated e-commerce business, you're always thinking about how do we keep our availability up, how do we make sure that the site is running properly at all times of the day and night. That's an incredibly challenging problem, and the cloud makes that a lot easier because you have distributed infrastructure. You can respond to things that are happening, whether they're external or internal, that much more quickly. So because we have this cloud infrastructure, we're able to build faster solutions for consumers. I mentioned that, and one of the ways we're doing that is through progressive web apps. One of the things that we learned in testing is that if we could serve up a page in less than 3 seconds, we lose more than half the audience. So the bounce rate goes through the roof. And if you're spending a lot of money to buy traffic, to pay for someone, whether it's through brand advertising to come to Expedia.com, or you're buying a search term like Tel Aviv hotels and you're paying a lot of money for it, if someone comes to the site and the page is coming up too slowly and they leave, you still have to pay for the advertising, and it's very easy to get upside down economically very quickly. Plus, it's just kind of a crappy experience, and it doesn't help build that repeat customer that everybody's looking for. So progressive web apps and the cloud have allowed us to dramatically improve the rate at which we serve up answers to the questions consumers have asked us. It's allowed us to increase the velocity of testing we do. We've increased the number of tests that we do on our website by more than 10 times in the last 12 months. One of the interesting tests that we've been able to do really rapidly surrounds images. And there's so many things happening in our industry all at the same time that impact how we think about answering consumer questions about travel. One of them is obviously the adoption of mobile device. I can see some of you are bored out of your minds and you're on your phones. Maybe you're shopping for that Cyprus vacation that you've been delaying with your loved one. But do people think that a mobile device searching for travel on your phone would increase or decrease the consumption of images, for example? What do people think? How many think it decreases the number of images you consume? That guy over there thinks so. And this guy over here. Okay. How many people think it increases? All right. So it actually is a bad question because clearly everybody got it right but those two guys. But it actually increases the consumption of images dramatically. People are looking at between 30 and 35 images on their mobile devices before they book a hotel room in one setting. So pretty dramatic. And what do people think the number one photo that people consume when they're searching for a hotel is? Do you think it's the lobby, the pool, the guest room? Jonathan. The pool, the bathroom, the food, the buffet, the toilets? These are great guesses, but they're all wrong. It's the guest room. Shockingly, I would have thought it was the pool or the resort's amenities, but no, it's the guest room. People want to see where they're going to sleep. So for those of you who work with hotels, you're welcome to share that with them, because if you saw some of the demos from the startup, some of those room images are really not that inviting. I think hotels spend a lot more time thinking about the shared and common areas and how they market and merchandise those versus their guest rooms. And maybe for this market, the toilets are very important, and they should put some effort into that too. See, you're learning so much at this conference. I know you'll all be back next year. Another place where we're deploying data science is in Tratt. So this started in Asia. We actually have a number of points of sale in Southeast Asia and in North Asia. We're the largest OTA in Japan, actually. And one of the things that we found is that chat apps have become incredibly dominant in Asia. You probably already know this. So in Japan, Thailand, Taiwan, and Indonesia, it's an app called Line, and you can see Thai customers spend 70 minutes a day, an hour and 10 minutes, using Line, this chat app. But it's not a chat app like Messenger or the way we think of an SMS app or WhatsApp. It's a little bit different. It's being used for e-commerce and for customer service. The apps that people are using in other Asian countries are a little different, but we decided to start in Thailand and build both travel search and customer service functionality into Line in Thailand. And so this is in English. It has the ability to change languages. I didn't think that the Thai-speaking audience in Israel would be huge, but Ram tells me otherwise. There's lots of Thai-speaking people, so next time I'll know better. But the shopping bot was something that we rolled out in Thailand, and we've continually invested and expanded the kinds of things you can do right within Line. And now we're starting to roll them out in some of our larger markets, and I wanted to show you what that looks like. So this is an example of, we didn't do it in Line because Line doesn't have users in North America, but we did it for our brand Travelocity so this is a North American brand for those of you who aren't familiar with it, and we did this in Facebook Messenger. And this is all that you're talking to a robot here, and the first scenario is shopping for travel. So people use Facebook Messenger, and they can go in and say hi, and we give you some choices. You want to search for hotels, you want to search for flights, activities, look at our deals. So it's a constrained set of things that we provide back. You say, I want to search hotels. We automatically ask you to give us some more parameters. So this person wants to go to Austin next weekend. System is smart enough to know that next weekend, what the dates are, which is June 15th, and then immediately provide you with some examples of hotels that are available and pricing. And then we've also implemented filters, so you can type in a number of different filter types. So price is probably the most common filter that people use. This is not a high-end customer. They only want to spend $75 to $124, which would not get you a hotel in Tel Aviv this time of year, I don't think. Maybe by the bus station, I'm not sure. And we'll then narrow your results down. So another scenario is a customer service scenario. Again, you can choose, we have a constrained set of problems that people can get automated help with. So this person immediately gets a list, it knows who they are, they get a list of their upcoming trips, so they've got a flight to Spokane, Washington. If you haven't been to Spokane, I highly recommend it as a destination that you should all see. I'm kidding. That was American humor. And you can then get a copy of your confirmation sent back to you. You can cancel. There's a lot of different things that you can do. So these are, early days kind of applications, but I thought it would be interesting for you to see kind of the direction that we're going. And, when we talk about, wow, we take 60 million calls, I've had people go, well, that's a horror show to have to field 60 million customer service calls in the travel space. They're not jealous that we have that kind of volume of phone calls. So and that's not how people want to interact with us, especially, people in markets like Asia where they're much more comfortable using their phones and getting this kind of automated support. So I'm going to conclude with two things. One is how you can work with Expedia. A question that Ram asked me, how can small businesses in Israel and startups work with Expedia? We have a full set of APIs. So all the content, those 650,000 plus hotels, the 1.6 million vacation rentals, the airlines, all those things are available through our API content. So if you have ideas on how you want to integrate our content into your services, you can do that. If you're not technical, does anyone in the audience want to admit that they're not technical? Ram's not technical. Okay, Chen, not technical. So we have templates for you, and you can do that through templates. And if you're just have a more traditional travel agency model that you want to implement, we have booking tools for agents, as I mentioned. An example of that is what Delta Airlines has done. They obviously are an airline. They're not in the hotel business. They're not in the packages business, and they've been able to integrate our content in a way that is coherent with their site and allows them to make extra revenue. And then my last thing is just building on Ram's last panel. One of the other things that we do as a business is we promote other partners. And one of our key partnerships, and one of the reasons that I was so excited to get the invitation to participate in this conference, is we've been working with the tourism ministry and with a lot of local partners to promote Israel. Traditionally the ministry has been very focused on promoting the destination as a whole and really focus on longer visits. And I think a couple years ago they pivoted and really started to view Tel Aviv and Jerusalem as sub-brands and to really focus on shorter breaks. And we've been working with them, and we've to identify markets where Expedia operates globally, where there'd be an openness to this message of coming to Israel for a city break in Tel Aviv. And I like to take credit for the fact that I think we had 40,000 people at the Pride Parade from out of the country. 30? We can say it's 40. Nobody knows. 30 to 40,000. 50, okay. We had a lot of people come for the Pride Parade, and not all of them are at this conference. Some of them are doing other things in Tel Aviv today. And, we have been building the city of Tel Aviv as a city break destination across a number of different countries, and it's worked so well that this year we're going to expand coverage and target 20 different countries. So we're really excited about that. And we've been using our data insights as well to build lookalike models of the kinds of people that are receptive to a message to come to a city like Tel Aviv for a city break, and have been doing really interesting things, kind of pushing digital advertising and getting the message out, and that benefits hopefully the entire market. And I'm way over time, over my 5 minutes.
Thank you very much, Noah. So we're gonna conclude, or Noach. That's it. Its real name is Noach, not Noah. Other than in Israel, in most places cannot pronounce the. So I'd like to call Killian to join the stage, and I could not find the little. Okay. No. So, Killian going to moderate the panel. You can do that. Killian is how we want everybody else in an international company to be like. Killian was last year contacted us because he heard somewhere about the conference and just email. I didn't know exactly what it is and who he is and what is Hostel World, to be honest. And he was one of our biggest hit last year, met with the startup, looked at all kind of collaboration, and became a huge advocate of the Israeli tech ecosystem here, the travel tech. So I asked him this year to moderate the panel because we have a lot of very interesting speakers, and we want to hear also from him about Hostel World and what they do, which is an OTA for hostels. So I'll call, please, all the panelists. Tim, Andy, Asi, and Avishai, please come, take a seat. And Killian, stage is yours. And after this, we have a quick happy hour, so stay with us. We need to finish before it's actually shown.
All right, okay. This might be more entertaining.
I think it's the Isra.
All right, okay. All right. Okay, well, first of all, welcome to the panel. I think this is a fantastic panel that Rom has pulled together for this session on distribution. I'm going to ask just each of them to quickly introduce themselves in a minute, them personally, why they're here, and just a little introduction to the organization. I'll just start really quickly with Hostel World for those who aren't familiar. We are an OTA, a niche OTA for hostels. We're based in Dublin, so we have about 260 people. About 160 of them are in Dublin. But then we also have offices in London. A lot of our marketing is done in London. Porto, Shanghai, Seoul, and I think Sydney is our last office. We do about 8 million bookings a year into hostels, and I think probably the unique thing about our business is 90% of our customers are under the age of 35.
So Tim Hughes, I'm Australian, but I live in Bangkok, Thailand. I work for a company called Agoda, which is very well known in Asia, but not so much in this part of the world. We're part of the Booking Holdings family, so I'm the sister company to Booking.com. We have a small office in Tel Aviv, about 8 people in a data science team, but our biggest link, and one of the reasons I'm here, is 4 years ago we bought an Israeli startup, PPC, an ad optimization company, who are now at the core of Agoda. The CEO of that business is now the COO of Agoda. So I'm here doing corporate development to try and do that again. The challenge is to find another great acquisition or investment for us to do in this part of the world. So happy to be here.
Hello everyone, my name is Asi. I'm working for Hotelbeds. My role is Global Director of Client Technical Solutions, which is the technical expert in the business. I don't know if all of you knows about Hotelbeds, but Hotelbeds is not so branded as the other companies, but it's a B2b company, the largest bed bank in the world today. We have an office here in Israel for many years already, more than 100 engineers based in Petah Tikva. Mainly focus on innovation in the travel industry.
Hi, good afternoon everybody. My name's Andy from Skyscanner. Most people I think might be familiar with Skyscanner. We are a meta specializing in flights, hotels and car hire. Specifically within Skyscanner, I work within the strategic partnerships team, so we're interested in talking to brands about using our API services in terms of flights, hotels and cars. It's first time in Israel for me, so it's fantastic to be here. I'm based in Glasgow in Scotland, so apologies, I think I actually brought some of the weather with me earlier today because I saw some rain earlier, which is apparently quite rare for Tel Aviv, but it's very familiar to me, so I already feel very much at home. I think in terms of where we are in Israel and why we're here is, like many other sectors and like many other travel tech organizations, we're just continually impressed and bowled over by the number of startups and tech innovation that's coming out of Israel generally. A week doesn't go by when we're not talking to a new exciting partner about a new exciting prospect that they've got. So a pleasure to be here and looking forward to the panel.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Avishai Cohen. I'm working in Amadeus. I'm located here in Israel, so צהריים טובים לכולם. And I'm an innovation champion for Amadeus. Our purpose is actually to go through and see what type of new technology we can integrate to Amadeus as a global distribution system. And that's it.
Okay, thanks, Saul. I think something around the whole distribution sector is that it has changed a heck of a lot in the last, I'd say, 10 years. I've been in the business 10 years and seen a lot of change. One of the things I was just going to talk about is the consolidation and what we've been seeing within that space. So I'll just start with you, actually, Andy. Ctrip obviously acquired Skyscanner a couple of years ago. And that, I think, it was certainly a left field acquisition that I wouldn't have seen coming. I suppose, what was the rationale behind the acquisition, and importantly, how has it impacted how you're managing Skyscanner, I suppose, from Scotland?
Yeah, sure, absolutely. It was around 18 months ago, I think, the acquisition. It was obviously a fantastic moment for Skyscanner. It allowed us to realise a long-held ambition to operate at greater scale than we had been previously. And I guess I've not been at Skyscanner that long, but it was recognition to some of the work and the engineering effort that Skyscanner had achieved over the preceding years. In terms of change to Skyscanner, it's operationally, I can tell you there's not a huge amount of change, actually, and it doesn't feel like there's been much change. I might have that wrong. Maybe that's someone from Ctrip phoning to tell me that's not right. But from an operational point of view, there's been very little change. I think that one of the things that Skyscanner has always been very proud of is things like the culture that we have. The culture at Skyscanner is very much aligned with many tech organizations, which is all about fail forward, fail fast, very open, very non-corporate, very say what you mean, say what you think, that sort of thing, quite flexible in terms of working, very collaborative, very open for business in terms of not just competition, but other people involved in the ecosystem. And Skyscanner was quite determined to protect that, and that certainly has maintained. We also have the same leadership team in place as well, so there's been no change in that department as well. And so as an employee of Skyscanner, I personally have not seen a lot of change. I think where Ctrip makes a difference for Skyscanner is a couple of areas. They have been able to invest and help us accelerate one of our strategic objectives, which is direct booking, the ability to complete your booking in Skyscanner territory from a user experience. And secondly, Skyscanner have powered a recent innovation, Ctrip have powered a recent innovation from Skyscanner, and that is us launching Rail in the UK on the iOS app, which is powered by Ctrip. So I think it gives us the ability to accelerate some of the strategy that we already have. But in terms of an operational, there's been a remarkably sort of little impact in terms of the day-to-day.
I can say for the rest of us in Asia, it was a massive signal, though, right? It was a signal that Ctrip was not staying in China anymore. And if we go back to sort of 2015, just before the acquisition, when Noah was building the Expedia empire, buying Travelocity, buying Orbitz, buying What If, I think a lot of us sort of marked off a number of competitors and thought to ourselves, okay, we're going to settle down into a two-horse race or a two-horse battle. Booking and Expedia are going to take on the world and see what happened. Ctrip quietly said, we've got a plan too. And I think even though it might have changed operationally, it certainly sent a big message to the rest of us that Ctrip was not going to stay in China.
Yeah, and we would have had that read from Hostel World as well. Subsequently, Trip.com, which has a strong Israeli influence within the business, Trip.com was acquired, and we also in Hostel work with Trip.com as well. What really is behind that acquisition, and how has that been integrated? Or
Yeah, sure. So again, last year, C-Trip purchased a company called Trip.com, and it has now been rebranded into Trip by Skyscanner. All of that content is available. So I guess the best way to give you maybe some sort of perception from the internal lens, if you like, one way of looking at it was that Skyscanner kind of views, like many organizations in the travel tech, its existence in the world based through the travel funnel. So on one side, you've got inspiration and discovery, and on the other side, I guess you could argue you've got more the business end of the funnel, which is obviously booking, where Skyscanner has traditionally operated. And one of the things that we've always been determined to do is make the user experience as good as possible. And this is a thing that I guess almost sounds cliched, but genuinely it's not, is that it's traveler first mentality at Skyscanner. And so the very fact that if we put that front and center of what we're trying to do, the other metrics will come from that, the users will come from that, the satisfaction of the product will come from that. We'll get that elusive repeat user that everybody is chasing, that will come from that as well. And with regards to Trip.com specifically, it allows us to occupy more territory in inspiration and discovery. So not only are we able to say, hey guys, here's a cool place to go based on what we increasingly are learning about you, but also here's how you can get there, here's where you can stay, and here's how you can get around to these different places, all of this content available. I think Trip by Skyscanner as well, what's interesting to us is that the content is generated from a very loyal base of UGC type contribution, but very loyal, very sort of passionately held, and it's quite gamified in terms of the reviews that you put on. And so some of the sort of stickiness metrics that we've seen have been fantastic. And lastly, it allows Skyscanner to occupy some territory in Trip. So not just, we've got you there, we've got you a place to stay, we found you the best flight and the best option, but now that you're there, we can actually assist in making your experience as good as possible. So it's really just about, it's early days as well. It's not that we're saying we've nailed it in any way, shape or form, but I guess it allows us just to, in various ways, enhance the traveller experience, and that's what it's all about for us.
Okay. And I'll just switch to the hotel beds has had its own consolidations, and it's been certainly, you've purchased, hotel beds has purchased GTA and Tourico. You might just explain a little bit about, I suppose, the organization as it is now, and Hotel Beds Group and how it's structured, and how you're managing through those integrations.
Okay, first, just to give an overview to understand the environment. So let's say we estimate the business of the accommodation hotels about $480 billion. Only $77 billion of them are OTAs. The rest is actually, it's either direct sales from the hotels or intermediary market. Now, in this market, the intermediary market, it's very, very fragmented, and there is a lot of opportunities there. And Sinvan, which is investment bank in UK and the Canadian pension fund, identified this opportunity and started to do some kind of a move to do consolidation in this market. So the first move was to buy hotel beds from TUI. After a few months after, actually, they purchased Tourico. Tourico Holidays was a private company. And a few months after, they purchased GTA. So those are the three leaders in the market, in the B2B, in the bed bank market. We are now, Sylvan and the Canadian function consolidate those three to one company to become the biggest bed bank in the world, by far, by the way. I think the one after us is half of the business that we are doing, and the one after that is fifth, or something like this. Now, we are now on the process of doing consolidation, which is a very interesting period, but also very challenging, because the consolidation is actually, the idea here is to bring value through synergies. Synergy in technology, synergy in manpower, synergy in distribution, but also to increase our buying power, because our business is actually sourcing. We know how to source the product good, maybe the best, or maybe one of the best, and we know how to distribute it. So increasing our buying power actually make a game changer in the market, which we start to see that in the last few months. And it's going to be very, very, going forward, we're going to be very important and maybe change. Maybe what happened in the OTAs a few years ago is now starting to happen in the B2B business, the consolidation, yeah.
Okay. And just, if I just bring in Avishai then, Amadeus has been around for a long time, I think since 1987. How do you actually see distribution, whether it's the B2B or the B2C, playing out and what Amadeus is doing in that space?
Okay, for Amadeus, for the last 30 years that Amadeus exists, so we all the time manage to keep in touch with the needs of the market. I can go back at least for the last 2 or 3 years, new things that we managed to get in line. Some of the things mentioned by Noach from Expedia, we did see the cloud as a solution to be more automated and have more flexibility with the customers, the end users. So we moved all Amadeus to cloud solutions. So that gives us a huge advantage in the market of distribution. We also look on aspects of security and compliance to the different laws. GDPR only went online this month, so there's a lot of aspects from security. We open, again, API with new functionality and all the time keeping in touch with the needs. So if you're looking about some of the functionality is still not in the market, but is already can be used, like changing ticket. Instead of using an agent, we can do that online and change the ticket, or an agent can do that with our simple tools. So we used all the time to be and look what is the needs in the markets and our customer to get the best for them. And over the years, we managed to do that, and that's why I think Amadeus is still in the lead of distribution, the data in the markets today.
Yeah, and I've seen quite some innovation around the payments side of it as well, and B2b wallets and things like that look pretty impressive. You know?
Yeah, we also added, I think in the last 2 years, we managed to put the B2b Wallet from Amadeus. It gives us a virtual a credit card that can be used mostly on the travel industry, but not only. The added value is obviously using a virtual card that at the end you're reducing cost of charging with any regular credit card and even receiving back value from several percent of what you sell. So Amadeus also went to that industry and saying that's a great opportunity to all operators that can use that.
Okay, I'll bring Tim in. Agoda is obviously a Southeast Asian predominant OTA. But you mentioned it yourself. You acquired Clicker in 2014 and then merged it within Agoda. Is it just a little flavor that you can give around the rationale of who Clicker were, why you bought them, and then why, I suppose, you brought them to Thailand?
It is, look, unambiguously true that Asia is our home. As I mentioned, we have 2,000 people in Bangkok. But I think we can now truly claim a global badge as well. You know, last year we opened our last continental office. We opened an office in Latin America, in Sao Paulo. We have 4 offices in the US, 4 in Europe, 6 in Japan. So we can truly claim a global stretch. And there are lots of benefits to working in and out of Southeast Asia. One of the challenges is the depth of talent is a challenge compared to other markets. And we were on the hunt for talent. And through deliberate effort and through fortune, as often these things do, we encountered the Clicker team here in Israel, and we're extraordinarily impressed with them. And it's a hard act to follow because we acquired them in 2014. 23 of the 24 employees moved to Bangkok. We used the one who remained behind as the basis for setting up a data science team here. And all of those who moved to Bangkok have stayed. The CEO has gone on to become our COO. Their PPC experts become our head of digital marketing, and their chief data scientist is now our chief data scientist. So it's a hard act to follow because it's one of the most successful acqui-hires I've ever seen. And I've been a lawyer and in corporate development for 20 years. I've never seen a small company be able to come in. It was almost a reverse takeover in many respects. Click or board Agoda in many respects, more than the other way around. So that's been an amazing experience for us. And from that, they've then been able to bring in a large amount of talent. So we have 40 or so Israelis now working for us in Bangkok. Though it's unrelated, our CTO also happens to be an Israeli. So we have a lot of ties back to Tel Aviv and this country. And so I'm very keen to spend more time here and try and figure out if there is other big patches of talent that we can build on for Bangkok and beyond. Yeah.
And had you proactively come to Israel looking for a bit, or did you kind of stumble? You were looking for something else and you stumbled?
We were proactively looking for acqui-hire activity.
Yeah.
We had a small pocket of Israelis already working for us. I mentioned the CTO was there.
Yep.
And we also had a product owner who was Israeli. So they had links to the community here that helped us find our way to Clicker. But meanwhile, we were looking in other markets as well. So one of the other acquisitions we made was in Taiwan, and a little bit closer to home. We also brought in an app development a talent shop through an acqui-hire activity. So it was more searching for acqui-hire opportunities. Where did our networks extend? We happen to already have a bit of a small network already growing into this ecosystem. But we are also on the hunt in other markets as well.
And is there any advice as let's say an established OTA who acquired a business and a startup business in Israel, is there any advice that you would have for, I suppose, other OTAs around the table? Or?
Bring the toughest negotiators you can find. Negotiating with steely-eyed founder CEOs in Israel needs the toughest negotiators you can find. Yeah.
Okay. And quick last follow-up just on that. You're obviously part of Booking Holdings. Do you have complete autonomy around your corporate development decisions and investments, or how does that work?
I mean, just generally speaking, Booking Holdings allows every company to run its own businesses and P&Ls completely independently. So we have our own targets, our own goals. Our tech stack is completely independent of the rest of Booking Holdings. So we are a completely independent company. Now, for a publicly traded company, there is no true 100% independence in corporate development, at the ultimate level. So in all respects, I'd have to check with the bosses and so forth. But that is a procedural activity, but it's just an important step that all publicly traded companies have to go into. But the Booking Holdings Group has made a history of, and a part of its core DNA, that businesses get to go off and run themselves.
Okay. As this is an innovation conference, after all, and there's been lots of discussion this morning and this afternoon around different technologies, I just wouldn't mind getting the panel's view. So we've heard AI, voice search, machine learning, VR. We talked a little blockchain and wallets. There's some of the buzzwords that are around. Which, and this is kind of an open question to anyone, which excites you most? And really, where are you putting priorities in terms of these innovations versus, and we know all this, the kind of the business as usual roadmaps that need to be developed? So it's kind of an open question.
Yeah, I guess I can come in on that briefly. So I think something for us and for me personally, definitely that's quite exciting is voice and the conversation economy, to put it all under that one header, if you like. Skyscanner was pretty rapid, pretty quick out the blocks in terms of developing capabilities on Alexa and on Facebook in that area. And I think a lot of people have said that sort of voice and conversation and chatbots is early. It doesn't have that absolute, doesn't smash it in terms of the conversions right at the business end of the booking funnel. Some of the technology is still developing. But when you start to look at the kind of implications that the voice could have on travel tech, it's absolutely incredible. And I think the reason why it's really interesting is because it's a natural and intuitive way to interact with technology. I think even if you think back to Captain James T. Kirk of the Starship Enterprise, showing how much of a geek I actually am. You know, communicating with a machine back in the 70s and the 60s, horror movies with people talking to machines as well. There seems to be something in the human psyche where the ability for you to actually have a personal assistant or someone to, or a bot or a conversation where then something can go and happen from that. I love the idea of usership of the PC and how much you use that dying away when mobiles came out and people were, instead of running upstairs to switch on their machine to check their emails, they just do it from the kitchen on the mobile. Will that happen in terms of people, instead of using their mobile, will they just demand the attention of an assistant to buy that? And I think personally we're at very early days in terms of what the capabilities of voice are going to bring to travel tech, and so it's an exciting area for us.
Well, I'd say Paul English from Kayak has probably put a big bet on Lola around that digital assistance based around voice. So, see. You were going to come in, Avishai?
I think one of the things that will bring us to the future, of obviously voice, I do also a geek of Star Trek and anything like that, but I think autonomous vehicle that we haven't mentioned here is one of the new and innovative things that's going to happen in the future that will change the way that we travel today. And that's something that it's very interesting when looking about into the future, what we can do with that and how we can use that from aspects of traveling. And that's, I'm not talking only about drones, but I'm talking about any vehicle, buses, we're talking about that all day, and that can change the way that you're looking about traveling in the industry.
If we talk about right now and today, we still have to spend the vast majority of our time and effort on mobile and on the apps. Our business is 55% mobile, and when I tell that to our American colleagues, they're stunned at how high it is, and when I tell it to our Chinese colleagues, they're stunned at how low it is. And so we know that it's inevitable that towards the end of next year and beyond, we become a 65, 75, 80% mobile business. So we have got to get the apps right now. But I do agree, in the longer term, the one that's the most exciting is voice. But I don't know if we're, to put it to the mobile stages, are we in the 2002 of voice, or are we in the 2011 of voice? And I think we might be a little bit closer to the 2002 and the 2011, because I think travel and voice needs one step beyond asking Alexa. Like, if I've never been to Tel Aviv, I'm not going to say to Alexa, book me a hotel in Tel Aviv. She's going to have to feed me back something first. And the only ideas we have are visual ideas on the phone, on the watch, on something. So I suspect there's got to be something more in the voice to visual interaction that we need to crack to make voice happen, just the way the iPhone was the thing that cracked mobile to make mobile happen. So day to day, it's mobile we're still focused on, because I think voice, there's got to be one little step more before it becomes the inevitably powerful platform that it will be.
And is there any traction that you're seeing from voice search in any particular age groups or markets or anything?
I don't think there's any trends that we could pull out. I think it's too early, to say that, though. We are seeing growth, and we are seeing continual interest in it. And there's also to separate the hype from the reality as well. It is early days on voice, but it's a bet worth placing. That's certainly my view.
And Tim, could you just elaborate a little bit just on mobile, and we all know the Asian market, particularly Chinese market, is particularly innovative on mobile and payments and integration of all kinds of services in WeChat. But just talk a little bit of what you're seeing in terms of innovation.
When I would sit on panels in Asia, in travel events like this in 2008s and 9s, I'd say we're really lucky in Asia. We can look to the future. We can look at what's going on in America, see what's going on there, and we'll just do that. Well, now the world can look to the future of mobile in China, where payment platforms have gone mobile. Everything is mobile. The app companies people don't even think about desktop. Email doesn't exist in China. People use their mobile phone number or their WeChat ID to identify things. So what are some of the things to see that? We've completely transformed payments. Cash has almost been eliminated in China, and credit cards have almost been eliminated. WeChat Pay, Alipay, and some of their competitor sets can pay everything through QR codes. You can go to a street dealer doing fried chicken and buy with a QR code. The taxi driver has a QR code swinging on the back of his seat for you to pay with the QR code. it's really hard to hail a taxi because they're unused to seeing someone with an arm stuck in the air trying to do such a thing. They're just so used to it being all driven by the phone. They're the most capitalist people I know, the Chinese, but they've got the most highly subsidized food delivery system on the planet, as hundreds of millions of dollars of venture capital funding has poured into restaurant delivery and food delivery. And everybody sits at their desk or in their house or in their office or in their hotel room and just has this army of people on motorbikes delivering every type of food imaginable. But it's tough as a foreigner because you turn up there without a local payment method and you are digitally cut off from the world. It's very hard to operate there as a tourist because you can't use Didi to book cars, you don't have local payment. You are the only person with a beaten up yuan bill at the store trying to pay in cash. And you can't order food to your room because it's all in Chinese. So this country has leapfrogged the world and taken mobile as the way to make that leapfrog. And we can all stare into that future and say, what does it look like in our markets when digital payments and food delivery and travel and platform connection is all being done through the phone.
And the payment methods that are missing, are you talking really about Union Pay and Alipay, or is it there's other things outside of China?
All those things, Union Pay is its own sort of network. Alipay and WeChat all linked to local payment methods. So you can't do what you think you can do here, which is I'll take WeChat Pay, stick my Thai credit card or my Australian credit card in the back of that system, and suddenly I can use WeChat Pay. No, WeChat Pay has to be linked to a Chinese-based system. So I kid you not, foreigners turn up to the local offices, hand their friend a couple of hundred yuan, and their friend gifts that a couple of hundred yuan back into your WeChat Pay to allow you to actually do things locally. So it's a market that has leapfrogged the world, but has therefore left a lot of the foreign travelers behind.
Right. Okay. Now, are there any then, talking specifically around innovation within the organizations, are there any pain points within your organizations where you see innovation and some of the startups that might be here helping solve those problems, discrete problems that might be in your business?
Yeah, I think that the B2B business is a little bit out of focus of the innovation in this scope, and it's a big opportunity in my point of view, because the B2B business, it's a huge business. It's, as I described before, it's $148 billion intermediary market, where only $43 billion is sourced by bed banks. And this is a huge market, and it's not so focused, and there is a lot of things that can be done here in the way that it operates, the structure, data, infrastructure. We are absorbing today about 3 billion requests per day. It's a huge amount of requests that we have in our systems. And this is a huge challenge. It's growing all the time. Data. We are sourcing 170,000 hotels, which means that we need to negotiate and manage them, know what to source, how to source, what kind of deals, what is the price, and of course the distribution. We are distributing to a lot. Let's say we have in the Hostel 5,000 clients connected to us and tens of thousands in retail. So all of this actually need to be automated as much as we can, need to have synergies, need to even distortions, because it's not efficient as it should be. And this is a place where innovation can actually have a very good place there to take part. And we as a company are open for that as much as we can. Yes, definitely.
Anything else down the panel?
I think any of the startups that we see in here today and have a place in the travel industry. Some of them came over from the e-commerce or aspect that didn't thought about travel. But actually travel is an endless vast that you can explore with almost any technological aspect that you can think of. So I had quite a lot of sessions on different ways. Not all of them are relevant to each person here on the stage or around, but you can find the right person in the travel industry that your ability or your new way of working can inspire and promote that forward. So I don't see a problem to any of the people that you saw today, and even outside this hall, that can go and join the travel industry somehow, because there's huge potential in any aspect.
We've got scores of problems to solve. You saw a lot of them in just the numbers that Noah quoted on the size of his company. You know, the number of telephone calls each of us take, and emails we receive, and chat messages we receive. We think we found ways to deal with them, but startups up there might have better ones. The number of people we have to pay. We have to pay, hotels every day. We have to charge credit cards every day. We have to do that in multiple languages and currencies. We think we're really good at it, but there must be ways to be better. Where are the startups up there? But the one part of the travel industry, I've obviously got a very hospitality lens of it, that I think is really busted. And we saw one startup here today pitching on it, is the on-property experience and the property management system structure. Because the dominant property management systems in the world are legacy old tech that don't do the things we think they should be doing. Like, you can book an airline ticket right now, you can pick the seat, you can pick the meal you want, you can pick an express boarding pass, you can buy all sorts of ancillary bits and pieces on it. But you book a hotel room today and you say, can I get a twin bed and can I check in at 11 o'clock? And they say, on request if available. On request if available, this is the internet, baby. We don't need on request if available anymore. We're in a world where everything should be searchable, bookable, confirmable, priceable and chargeable. So there's a whole bunch of revolution, I think, in that on-property and post-booking experience that we've seen some startups, we saw on pitch today, that I think there's a lot of opportunity in as well.
Okay, and any advice in particular to startups in how to get in the door of your organizations and really?
Yeah, I guess one of the things I would say is I noticed a theme throughout the day as well, where there's clearly a lot of startups in the room, and I guess you could say that you could observe a little bit of frustration in terms of, how do you engage with bigger organizations and what they're trying to do. And that's tough. That's a tough thing to do. There's definitely something about concentrating absolutely on the product and concentrating on that more than anything. I think probably what's more impressive is just an absolute focus on the problem that we solve is, and just making sure that you stick to that as a situation and how you want to get in. Another thing would be patience. So understanding not just about the fact that, and I think someone from Dan Hotels touched on this as well, is in this amazing technology and amazing sector that we live and work in, people buy from people. So it's not actually, regardless of how shiny the technology is, and regardless of how many metrics there are or how many amazing problems are solved, you need to establish a personal relationship with people who you're essentially selling to. And that recognize that can take a while and be persistent. And that's not tech advice, but it's just definitely something that works in our experience.
From my experience, so if I go back about 4 or 5 years ago, I was also an entrepreneur. And I was sitting in those conferences, I was in fintech. And then I joined the corporate. And this transition actually had a culture shock, okay? The way that people are thinking, the way that things are operating. So at the beginning I thought, hey, you can do that, you can do that, you can do that. But eventually I understood that it doesn't work like this. And I think the first thing to understand is how a corporate is working, the way that it's operating. So you have to understand that if you want to do a change in a corporate, so you're actually moving the cheese. So there is a lot of stakeholders that maybe will not want to do that. Maybe we want the credit, and so on and so on. So it's very, very complex. Now, the solution, in my opinion, you need to have an ambassador. You need to have an ambassador in the corporate that believes in what you're doing, and he is the one that drives everything for you. It's very important. You need to know how to communicate internally, properly. You need to understand what is the interest. Although even if you have a great idea, you need to know how to execute it inside the corporation, and it can be done. It can be done, maybe easier in smaller companies than big, but it definitely can be done if you are doing it the right way.
And there's one thing that the travel industry does almost better than any other industry. It's people make themselves available and accessible. I mean, there are senior executives at every event like this. There are people wandering the floor, that are with senior decision makers at events like this that are open to startups saying hello, are open to startups coming up and saying hello. So you've just got to get out there, right? You've got to do some good old-fashioned hustling. And the travel industry makes hustling a little bit easier than a lot of other industries. If you're trying to get to top executives in banks or pharma, they are really hard to find. At trade events, they turn up, they speak, they run. But at trade events and travel, people turn up and speak and hang around. So you can find it. You just got to hustle for it.
I think proposing a trial as well is a good way of doing it. Lots of technology companies talk about split A/B testing and data-led decision making and all that sort of stuff. And it's unlikely that you're ever going to go from, hi, here's who I am, here's the technology, to can we have a global deployment across your entire business? So if you're in there proposing, listen, can we do this? Can we prove our concept with just 5% of your traffic in the Israeli market? Would that be okay? And we want to work with you. That's a much more digestible thing, and it means you're going to get further with the organization.
Yeah, I think I would echo a lot of because I came here 12 months ago. I went back with a big Excel spreadsheet of 22 businesses that I'd met, that I was really excited about 3 or 4 of them. But then you get back to base, and for those 3 or 4, you're not the buyer. What you're saying, Asa, you're the ambassador. And it's really trying to find the use cases and the proofs of concept to continue to push something through, get some results, and then. So I think the advice actually has been really, really good. I haven't ignored the questions, particularly the one that says, "Aren't we running late?" So there is one theme that has come up that I do want to touch on. It's really, and I think the theme is really around OTAs becoming one-stop shops, and really how you are dealing with it. And tours and experiences has come up a lot. I can see dining and restaurants have come up. Just a quick comment on how you see that space evolving and your interest in ancillaries, aside from the pure transactional booking of hotels or whatever it might be.
Well, I'll answer that. I think we've still, personally for Agoda, we've got a lot to do in accommodation before we become full-service OTAs. But I never like these questions that say, there's OTAs on the left and hotels and touring companies and flights on the right, and we're somehow opposed to each other and fighting out each other and in a war. I think we're collaborating with each other. I think we've grown this industry together. We've built the online industry together, and we're doing some of that with different customers. I'll give you an example. If you look at all of the bookings we did in 2016 and 2017, took every single one of those bookers, and you looked at anybody who repeated at the same chain, it's less than 10% of our customers. So less than 10% of our customers through 2016, 2017 who repeated did so at the same chain. So I'm not competing against Hilton.com or Starwood.com, who has got this loyal base of people who are tied to that brand and love that brand. I'm the shopping mall that has brought out to a whole wider range of customers. So I don't agree that we are making hotels or touring companies and flights redundant. They're just catering to a different market segment to us.
Anybody else, or can I actually see that we're out of time. I do have, because I need to shamelessly plug hostels at some point in this. I just have 3 quick questions to ask, and it's a yes or no to the first one. Have you ever stayed in a hostel?
Yes.
Yes.
That's good to hear. Are you in a dorm room? Would you be top bunk or bottom bunk?
We're talking about like the 1980s and 90s drunk backpacker version of me, then it's always the bottom bunk.
Bottom bunk.
Top.
Definitely top.
Me too, top.
All right, 3, but I'll go 4, so 4 are on top. Last question then. If you were to share a room with an unexpected celebrity in the hostel, and that's unexpected celebrity is either 50 Cent, Charlie Sheen, or Mariah Carey, who would you pick?
50 Cent. Mariah Carey, of course.
1980s Mariah, 1990s Charlie, and 50 Cent right now.
I will go with Maria.
I'll go Charlie Sheen. He'll be an interesting night out,
Okay.
I guess.
Well, that's very interesting. I'm glad at least one person picked Mariah Carey because we have put all of those three into Hostels, and I think we've got Mariah has had something like 70 million views since I think it went live in April. So we spent a lot of money to put Mariah in. So I'm glad at least one person said that they'd pick Mariah. And if you want to watch that, it's on YouTube as well. So I'd like to thank the panel. I know we're out of time. And thank Rom for having me. I'm not sure if I was relegated from the panel last year or promoted, but thank you for having me.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Avishai, Andy, Asi, team, and yes, Killian, you were promoted. So thank you very much for the person with the snowman. Thank you for this nice design. And yes, we are late. So I just want to cover at least 2 questions on the Slido. Again, I just want to thank, first of all of our guests, the one that travel here from far. Many of them are here for the first time ever in Israel. Obviously, our guests from Israel, many of them travel a lot extensively overseas, and they are based here working for international companies. We couldn't do it without you, the startup, the community, the local travel community, and everybody else. So again, thank you. And of course, our sponsor, go out, enjoy some beers, and we'll see you next. Bye-bye.